Hello, everybody. I think Scott did this to me on purpose because of our topic today. He said, I have to do the introductions. And our topic today is on tone and pace. So this is so appropriate that he's having me introduce him. Scott, Chief Peacekeeper, mediator extraordinaire, and my name is Laura, and I am a divorce coach. And we work together a lot. And when we get chit-chatting after we have clients, we come up with these, oh my gosh, we need to talk about this with you. And today we want to talk about how to set tone and pace in a divorce. And as we were talking before we started to record, this literally starts from the very beginning. So I was telling Scott, and hello, Scott, welcome.
Hi, how are you? You're doing a great job, by the way.
I'm so good. I'm so good.
I didn't want to do it. You're doing incredibly well.
Hey, thanks. Tone and pace. And I was telling Scott before we started recording that I know couples who say, you can't say the word divorce unless you really mean it. So there's rules in relationships that people come up with or agreements, and that's how you know when things are sometimes going sideways. So what we see is people going out and hiring an attorney, and then all of a sudden they come home and they say, well, I've hired an attorney, I want a divorce, and that immediately sets a tone for the rest of the process. And what Scott and I wish for the world is that we back that up, and you either find somebody like me or me, and we learn how to have conversations about how to broach the topic with somebody, how to decide if you want to get a divorce, if you decide you want to get a divorce, what that's going to look like, and how we get you into Scott's office to not end up with $20,000 worth of retainer fees paid immediately, but end up with somebody like Scott, preferably Scott, because he is the chief peacekeeper. And I mean, what that looks like. So interject anytime here, because if you turn the mic over to me, I'm just going to keep talking, you know.
No, I mean, I think you're doing a great job. I just, what you said just reminded me of a client that we signed our final divorce papers yesterday in the office, and they were mentioning that they had gone to a counseling session, came back from it, looked at each other. One of them said, I just can't be married to you anymore. The other person agreed. And then they found me, right then and there, they were looking for someone to make, help them move forward. So, even in that situation, they had proceeded with intention, but they had also stayed aligned in their goals of moving forward in a way that, respected their time together and honored the marriage and their children, which they share. So, what you're talking about, like making a plan, broaching the subject, this is acting with intention and using, this in addition to the heart, all important things.
Absolutely. And I know when I coach, and that's a really great point, like when I coach, I always say it's a whole body thing, right? Like your head and your heart need to be aligned. You need to absolutely just have it all go through your whole body, make a whole body decision, not just like a gut reaction or like your brain goes off in one direction. It's also, I would say, something really important that we both see is it's very hard to de-escalate a situation. So if you start super escalated, bringing it down is so much harder than starting amicable. And it's going to escalate a little bit. There's going to be rough patches. There's going to be times that you and I are working people through decisions that are hard. Mediation means compromise. It doesn't mean you're going to go in and win the whole thing. However, if we just start de-escalated and let it just kind of creep up and just ebb and flow a little bit through the process, I think that's one of the things that we do really successfully with people is pace that process, honor when it does get sticky, but start it down here. Because if you're up here,
you are being so smart right now. So one of the things that one of the ways that we work together is that when people sign on to mediate with me, they actually get, a certain number of sessions with Laura as well. So she's acting as a coach. And when you start down here, she can help you stay down here. And people often say, hey, you're down so easy. Everyone just comes in with it all figured out. It's so amicable, Miss Chief Peacekeeper. I'm like, no, that's not, I mean, sure, that can happen, but like my clients are not kumbaya. They're not loving to be in this situation oftentimes, and they're not loving to speak with each other all the time, about, especially about things that we work on in divorce. But if you can start down here, then Laura can work with you to stay down here. And as it creeps up, as things get scary or confusing, or you can maintain it so that you get through the process, in the right way. One thing that can start off wrong when you do the $20,000 in retainers to the litigators, I have clients all the time. In fact, one right now where mom hired a lawyer, served the divorce papers on dad. And those divorce papers said that mom gets 100% custody, and that there's been mental abuse and emotional abuse. And when dad got it, they're still living in the same house. And he said, what's going on with this? This is what you want? You want to take custody? And I'm a great dad. And she goes, I had no idea. That's not what I signed up for. But dad's now up here. Because he's gonna fight for my kids. You're gonna take my kids away from me. So that's part of the game of litigation. You get people fired up here so that as they get the year and a half in and not a lot's happened, and they're starting to de-escalate, hopefully, because not a lot's happened, but they're just spending money, that they never get low enough to say, hey, let's just figure this out together.
I always think that as a war of attrition, if you are spending a whole year, this whole life cycle of you started here, you escalated up, and now you're so freaking tired and exhausted and spent so much money that you're like, ugh. And I often wonder, and this is a conversation that you and I have had before too, if I could give people a piece of paper at the start, knowing kind of almost like a matrix time warp thing where I'm like, okay, write down what you would settle for today, and then look at where after they've fought for a year,
absolutely,
how close they end up. But I'm like, it's probably pretty close, and you haven't given up a year of your life. And there's reasons why that route is maybe appropriate for people. However, one huge point that I want to bring up today is you're going to end up with a mediator anyway.
Yep.
You may have representation on both sides. You will end up with a mediator. And I don't know what the statistics are nationally. I think state by state, they're a little bit different, but often
well over 90% of the cases will settle voluntarily, the litigated cases.
So why not start in that spot
before you've spent, and a year is not, it's 2.5 years in Southern California, the average case. So there's outliers out there that bring that up a little, but there's also lots of cases that settle right away. So I mean, it's 2 years and it's thousands of dollars, and it's also the weight of that. You literally you'll feel it after all that time being in that contentious atmosphere. It's not somewhere you want to be.
And your family feels it. Your kids feel it. Not only you as somebody who's going through a divorce, but if you have children, and I will say in my experience, adult children impacted deeply by divorce. I have 33-year-old children of people going through a divorce that have reached out to me just what's how do I cope with this? What do I, or they're stopping talking to one or the other parent. And I'm like, 30 years old. How are you not just figuring out that your parents didn't want to be together? But there's a lot of impact, a lot of, like you said, Scott, weight that we just would prefer that you don't have to experience. So the more levity we can give it, the more insight and the more thinking with your heart and your mind and with your family in perspective, I think our invitation to you would be reach out to us. And if you need help deciding what you want to do, what process you want this to look like, what your goals would be, let us help you.
I love everything you said. And that's why, like I said, when you mediate with me, you get a certain number of sessions with, that help you make those intentional statements. So you have the mediation and you have the coaching, and it really is a powerful combination. And thank you for doing the introduction and for being here with us.
I set the tone and pace.